guys, welcome to Unresolved Overcoming 2020, and we are here with some student athletes, and I want to introduce you guys to them. So before we do that, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Leone Farquharson. I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. I live in Canada and the US. I'm a long jumper on Cornell track and field team, and we're going to start by telling also what's one sport we would do if we weren't doing this one, and I would be doing swimming.
My name is Monique. I'm from Bloomfield, Connecticut. Now we're up the East Coast till I die. I go to Cornell University. I am a junior and I'm on the track and field team as well. I'm a high jumper. And one sport that I would do, not because like I've ever done it or would probably be good at it, would just be gymnastics because I've just always been interested in that. And I feel like they just do a lot of cool things and it's amazing.
My name is Iko Jones. I am from Kingston, Jamaica, and I go to the University of Louisville in Kentucky. I'm a junior, but I'm also a redshirt sophomore, and because of like Corona, I'll be a redshirt sophomore next year as well. It's kind of weird. If I did not play volleyball, I would probably do track in college because I did track all through high school. But I mean, if it was my choice, I'd probably play basketball because it's super cool and I'm tall.
My name is Adeniza Noble. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, but I went to high school in San Diego, so I guess I kind of read both. I go to University of California, Berkeley, and I'm a sophomore, but technically a redshirt freshman. And if I wasn't doing track, I'd probably do volleyball or tennis because I play tennis, but anything that just doesn't have a lot of running in it, I do.
Hi, I'm Jayden Matthews. I'm from South Florida. I am a junior at Cornell University. I play midfield for Cornell and for Jamaica. And one sport that I think I do is track, but I'm going to do it. But I need to get in shape before I do that. And yeah.
So I'm just going to get into the questions about yourself. How long have you been doing your sport and what made you start it?
I've been running track since high school, sophomore year, or no, freshman year. Beginning of freshman year, I started running track. Before that, I played tennis since I was like really, really young. And I did basketball for a few years, but I kind of got burnout. You know, like when you play a sport for a really long time, I got burnout and I wanted to try something new. And I think like for me, track, like it really gave me the competitive individualism that I got from tennis, but it also like incorporated the team aspect. So once I was like, dang, I'm kind of good, I just kept doing it. And I kind of got stuck.
How long have you been doing your sport and what made you start it?
So my story is kind of weird because my whole family are runners. My cousin, he won the gold medal for track in Jamaica, and like my mom, she's a marathon runner, so like soccer was just so weird. Like they're like soccer, and I guess like it incorporated running a lot, so it's kind of the same. But I started soccer when I was 4, and I'm still 21. And I'm not gonna do the math because I would probably get it wrong, but a long time. So, and I never got burnt out. Like, I love it. Like, I think if I don't play for like 3 days, I become like depressed. But I also do like when I did track during high school, I like how they overlap. Like, I feel like soccer overlaps with a lot of things, and you have to do a lot of things to like maintain yourself, like lifting, running, and just like the mental part of it too. So it's a lot, but I enjoy it.
My story is kind of similar to Jadyn's. Like both my parents played volleyball, so I grew up around the sport in Jamaica, and like everyone in my family like had some volleyball skills. So like we'd always play for fun. My dad ran track though, so like, and my uncle was a thrower, so they both wanted me kind of to go into track, but it wasn't for me. I prefer team sports, so I started playing volleyball officially in the 7th grade, and I've been playing ever since. But yeah, I also played netball, which is why I like basketball, and I did track, like I said, but volleyball was just it for me.
Mine is the complete opposite. Growing up, you could definitely say like my family was a soccer family. Literally all of my siblings, and I have 4 other ones, we all played soccer growing up. And I even played it through high school, but of course, when I walked in, I'm on the taller side for a girl too. I'm 5'10". So it wasn't even the track coach, it was like my guidance counselor. She saw me and was like immediately, yeah, we're bringing you to the track coach. And since then, it just kind of stuck because like a lot of you guys said, like once you're good at something, Obviously feels like good to be good at something, and my love and appreciation for the sport just grew within that, and I kind of just stuck with it ever since. So I've been doing track for 7 years now, which feels like a long time, but yeah, started in high school.
For me, my story is completely different, I think, from everybody's. I don't think anybody in my family did track at all. My dad was a cricketer, so I may be like probably the only one that did a sport competitively like this. So that's interesting. But I also wanted to know from you guys, like, how did you juggle it since you guys started, a lot of you guys started very early? Like, how did you juggle it with other hobbies? And are there any other hobbies that you like would do that's non-sport if you weren't doing the sport?
I really didn't have to juggle it until the 7th grade, because even though like I was always around volleyball, like in Jamaica, not many prep or primary schools play volleyball, and I didn't do track. I was a nerd before high school. So I was like in all the clubs. I was like planting trees on Earth Day and like doing all those stuff. And I did not want to sweat. It was weird. But then I hit high school and I started playing volleyball. I danced, I played netball, I did track, and like I did every sport. So it was a big like switch for me. But because I loved doing sports, like it wasn't hard to do it all and like manage it with school. I found like there was a time when I like tore a muscle and I had to sit out for 2 weeks, and my grades were the lowest they ever were because I had so much time on my hands and I did not know what to do with it. So like I was better when I was juggling stuff and like than when I was not. So I don't know how I did it. It just kind of came, like it just happened, but it was better for me than like not having anything to do. How do I do it now? Not sure. But it's because I love volleyball, it makes it a lot easier. It's kind of like doing something I love, even though it's like a job at the same time. So it's really fun. Other hobbies, I kind of have a YouTube channel, not really. I like content creation. So like, I like to like learn how to do like graphic design. I love like photography. My camera broke, so I'm not really doing that, but I love like those kinds of things. I think like doing stuff with my hands. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like when you're doing something you love, it definitely makes it easier. So it's more worthwhile to, in a sense, like juggle or manage all of that. And then me too, with just starting in high school, I feel like that almost made it easier too, because like I always wanted to be a part of anything, any club. Like wanted to do it all. So in that sense, I feel like it exposed me and to more things basically, so I could almost narrow down what I wanted to actually focus my time on and spend more time doing. And of course, track became one of those things because it is very time consuming. And in that, if I did have to like choose another hobby, I still enjoy trying different things. So like I have a sewing machine that I have yet to actually use, or I was just like looking at the candles I was burning instead of buying them, like maybe making candles as a hobby one day. But there's a lot of things that I would want to try. But like you were saying, I don't think I ever like particularly had to like manage or juggle anything. It almost makes it easier to have a lot on my plate for me, because it kind of forces you to structure honestly yourself and like my days and all that, and like served as that like central thing that I was kind of like building / shaping what I was doing for the day around, which kind of helped provide that like extra structure that I definitely think played a big role, especially in high school too, when you can easily get swept up in so many different things. But even now too, it's kind of something that keeps you grounded and something that I enjoy to do.
I agree with both Monique and Aiko. Like when I was playing tennis, it was harder, I think, because tennis is year round. So I literally was playing like every single day of the entire year. So it was like very time consuming. And I didn't really, I mean, like I still got to be a kid and like do all those types of things, but like I had less time on my hands. But when I got to high school and I started running track, I think like I agree the same thing. Like when you love something, it kind of feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel as tedious. Like sometimes you get to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, like, am I really doing this? Am I really running track and doing all this stuff? Like it's a lot to juggle. But at the same time, it feels like it's very rewarding. So you feel like all of the things that you have to juggle, it's like worth it. And it's kind of like encouraging, especially when, you know, you see yourself improving. I think in college though, now I'm trying to get back to, you know, the stuff that I enjoy doing. Like I like model and stuff like that. And I also like, I do a lot of writing. So I try to make time, like I'll say to myself, like, okay, like I'm going to have, you know, 2 shoots a month or something like fun, because I feel like you need a break, especially like with college like work, the type of work you have to put into college and just track in general, like waking up early and doing all this stuff. So I try to like remember to do things that I love doing, so I don't get to the point where I feel like it's too much of a job.
I feel like I'm so unhealthy compared to all you guys because I absolutely have no hobbies. Like, I think my life like is just soccer. And like I think I didn't realize it until this pandemic because like I would say like not to get like too deep, but I would say like I lost myself a little bit this during the pandemic because everything I did in life, like I only joined track so I could like cross train for soccer. I only go to workouts for soccer. Like I don't work out for fun. Like I do everything so I can become better at my sport. And I think everything in my life like revolves around that. And I think that's where I kind of have a downfall. Like yes, I excel in soccer and do all these great things, but then like in times like this where like I don't have soccer and I'm supposed to be doing something and it like I feel like it hits me like a lot harder than like some people because they have different things that they can do. Whereas like my whole life has been like, I'm gonna go to track practice, I'm gonna go to soccer practice, I'm gonna come back, then I have games on the weekend and like stuff like that. So I just feel like that's where I need to do some self-learning and like, so like me and Monique like started an organization and like I feel like that has helped a lot take up my time and like something that I'm passionate that like I learned that I'm passionate about. Yeah, so I think that's where I need to like grow a little bit. So it's inspiring to hear you guys talk about everything you love. And I'm just like, oh gosh, but yeah, I'm still learning.
So like with that, Jay, that made me think of like, I guess how are we able to, everybody except Jay, because she said that she's kind of unhealthy. Like, how do you separate your identity from the sport in a sense? Because it's hard for me. Like this semester, I dealt with an injury and not being able to train. Like I was not okay. So like, how do you guys separate your identity from it, and how do you like fulfill your self-esteem and everything like that, not on the basis of your competence in the sport?
Honestly, like when Jay was talking about she had a hard time, girl, don't even be fooled by what I'm saying right now, because when track season was canceled, and it was canceled in the middle of our season, like we had a few meets and then it was canceled. So it was like, oh, you trained basically for all these months, went through all these hard workouts, throwing up on the side of the track, waking up at 6 a.m. for weights just for it to be canceled. Like, trust me, I was depressed for a couple months. Like I was in my bed like, wow, like what do I even go? Because I went back home. Like I flew back home. I was at home and I was like, I should be having a season right now, but I'm literally at home, So it was just like, I definitely struggle with that too, because I was like, I feel like this is my identity. I have so much time on my hands. I feel like, what am I supposed to do? I'm bored. Like, I don't want to be at home with my siblings. Like, nah, like I was not feeling it. But honestly, like, I think one of the things that helps is one, staying like involved on campus. Like, even though I know it's super hard, like having time to do those things outside of your sport and school is like really time consuming. But like staying involved on campus, like I'm a member of our BSAC board, which is like the Black Student Athlete Committee. And I'm also a member of like BSU, which is our Black Student Union. And I think it helps a lot with staying like involved with things outside of school. But at the same time, it's not too time consuming because they understand your schedule. So I think like going back to that, and then also like during the pandemic, I was like, what are some of the things I like to do as a kid? Because a lot of those things that like you like to do as a kid, like I remember I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a journalist, or I'm gonna be a president, or whatever the case may be. And just going back to like a lot of the things that you like to do as a kid and just like tap it into that, because like those are skills that you also had. Like we're very multifaceted people. So just like, tapping into a lot of the things that you like to do and just staying on campus, like I don't know. I think I had to grow from the pandemic too, because trust me, I was depressed too. Don't get it twisted. Like I was lost.
I agree with you guys 110%. And like even before the pandemic, but I'll get there. During the pandemic, like we were obviously not in season because we're a fall sport, but I went home to Jamaica and the whole time I was home, I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be practicing. Like, I'm supposed to be in Louisville. Like, this is weird. It's not supposed to. And that mentality of like things not being the way they were supposed to be killed me. Like, it was so hard, especially being back home in Jamaica. I was like, I'm not even supposed to be in this country right now. Like, this is just not, like, nothing is right. And I'm a person that like normally likes to plan like everything, and like on a Sunday I'd sit down and be like, oh, this is what I have for the week. And like I was unable to do that for months, and it drove me insane. And like before that, when everything was going how it was supposed to go, if I had a bad day at practice, I had nothing else to do for the day, then my whole day was a bad day. Like if I had a great day, I aced my test and then I went to practice and it was like not my best day. If like Leone texted me and was like, how are you doing? I'll be like, well, today sucked. Like, but just because I had a bad day in practice. And luckily I had like people around me who would like tell me like, you cannot base your day off of your practice because it's literally only like 2 to 3 hours of your day. And so I started to get into that mentality. And then it kind of like Des was saying, during the pandemic, I didn't have volleyball, and I was like, why do I only get joy from volleyball? Like what else is there for me? So like I did a remote internship and like I dove back into graphic design. I filmed some vlogs and like I really enjoy doing those things. And now I'm so much more involved in school. Like you said, like I'm part of our Black student athlete group. I'm part of SAC now. I'm part of our international student athlete group. And these are things that I would never have done like before the pandemic. So it's forced me to like spread my wings and get out of the bubble that is volleyball and athletics, which has helped me so much like with myself. Cause I know if I have a bad day at practice and I have like a SAC meeting later, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna play some games and like it's gonna make my day better. So it was really hard for me, like I'm a junior, so 3 years now, and it took until my third or my like right into my third year for me to realize like volleyball is not the only thing out there for me. And like I don't know, my world is just so much brighter. Yeah.
And for me, it wasn't even just like realizing that like track wasn't the only thing out there in like the whole world for me. It was just thinking about that in the context of my campus, just realizing that I should and I can do a lot more on campus. That's definitely, like you were saying, going into my junior year too, because I'm a junior. But something that I tried to like focus on and kind of make myself more mindful of, and just understanding that our relationship between the sport is like an actual relationship, basically. So you have to kind of nurture it and treat it as such. And like if you have any other relationship, if you're too focused on each other, whether if it's a friend, like significant other, any relationship, then like it's doomed from the beginning. So just understanding that you need time and space from your sport, just to make sure that you are, like you were saying, an individual too, and that you're bringing your best like self almost into the sport. And growing as a person, and then being able to grow within the sport, as opposed to them being like conjoined in a sense. Because then when you think about the other extreme, because obviously no one saw a pandemic in our athletic careers, but like going into retirement, I feel like a lot of times when athletes retire, it's almost like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, you know, so I guess you could say last March that start for us kind of prepared us for the inevitable in a sense. But just thinking like, what can I do to be like my best Monique? And if your sport is literally the only thing tied to that identity, I feel like that is extremely problematic. And that's and that's where
Not the shade.
You have to grow. Like, not problematic, you know, I'm not saying this, but just making sure that you have other things you enjoy, because you know, there's not always going to be that one thing or one person in your life, basically, that you should just have everything revolve around. It's important to just kind of have a few things, you know, go into that, multiple things you enjoy, because then, you know, we have things like injuries or pandemics or sports that get like defunded and programs that are cut, and, you know, you just can't count on things like that. And you just have to make sure that you have other things to fall back on.
I guess like where I get like, it's hard for me because as like being a professional athlete, like they always tell you like everything in your life like needs to go towards being a professional athlete if you want to make it. Like, and I feel like that it's hard because it's like I'm trying to like not make everything in my life, but I need to in order if I want to go professional, but then like not lose yourself. And I think that's such a fine line. I think that's why so many like professional athletes have problems, because no one teaches you, because it's different. Like if you want to be a college athlete, what you have to do with your life is different. If you want to be a professional athlete, what you have to do with your life is way different. And I feel like we only see, I mean, obviously only a little people go professional, but like we don't know like that next step, because like just doing what I would do for college is definitely like not enough for what I would want to do for a professional. So I think that's where like I'm trying to learn.
Mhm.
But I do
And
really problematic.
No, problematic was like, very extreme word to use. But like that's still that same sentiment. Even still, Jay, like when you're saying like everything, I feel like the other skills almost and like the other things that they add to you will still just make you better for your sport and like better as an athlete in a sense.
Mhm.
Like it just doesn't have to come from that sport / be for that sport, but you can still intentionally like apply those skills, apply that mindset or whatever it is to the sport in a sense. So it's still helping you grow in that area, but it doesn't need to be only like that's the only source that you're getting.
Yeah.
From,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can relate to Jay, like with going professional, like even though we're in Christmas break, like I want to play pro volleyball, like when I'm done with college. And like in Christmas break, I work out over the break and like practice over the break, not so much because like my whole team is doing it for college, but because I'm like, I can't afford like all this time off if I want to go as far as I want to go. Like I have to stay in shape, like I have to, but thankfully I've like found a place where I like, okay, like I went in every day up until last week. I was either working out or practicing. For Christmas, I was like, I'm going to take a week off. Like I don't want to take a week off, but like I'm not going to do anything this week. And then I'll start to like slowly pick up again. But I used to be the person who's like, no days off, maybe Christmas Day, but like no weeks off. Like I can't afford that. But now I'm kind of like, okay, I deserve this. And this rest will actually help me be better when I go back. So like, I can understand that like wanting to put in all that work required to like go further. And it's just like, I kind of like what Monique is saying, like you just have to figure out what works for you. But I think like you have to find like your happy medium, like where you can find like where you can do enough work, but where you can still like put time into other things so that that relationship with sports stays really like fruitful.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah.
No, for sure. I feel like as an athlete, the definition that we give ourselves, it's a bit hard, and the definition I think people put on us as well can put us in a box. And that's definitely something like I don't like, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation, because I wanted to speak about, the fact that there's a lot more beyond the title student athlete. And there's much more that we offer to a community. And with that being said, like I wanted to speak about things that you guys have been doing on your campus. So for example, Jay and Monique, as Jay mentioned, that they started an organization called WACA. And, this May, June, when the police brutality was at the every-time high in the media, of course, not in general. So I want to speak about like what compelled you guys, I guess, to, for example, do the campaign Hear Us Now, and like why do you feel like you had to take that stance or and give that kind of effort for your community, for your fellow student athletes and student body?
I always like heard this quote. It's like, if you want something done, like you have to do it. Like I don't know how it really went, but I felt like a lot of times like there was a lot of people that wanted things and like wanted things to be done, but like didn't actually like get it done. And like I feel like we're all busy. Like we all have things that we need to do, things that take up our time. But like for me, like I felt like just starting Waka like with Monique, like that was, we didn't even know each other really. Like we were just like, we need to get this done, and then we did it. Like thanks to Leonie, like getting us together. But I feel like the Hear Us Now photo campaign, like I was tired of like people only seeing us like as only athletes, like personally. Like I felt like I was only seen as this like fast, like the amount of times the first thing people would say is like I'm fast, aggressive. Like I like people, but never people would be like, oh, she's nice, like she's a great person, da 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 da. Like I feel like people don't see us, especially like at Cornell. I don't know about your school in Louisville, but like at Cornell especially, like it's like crazy because like you have like the Black community, and then like you have like the Black student athletes community, and I just feel like we were so isolated. And then on top of that, we like I didn't have any friends my freshman year at all, and I feel like we don't have like the support system that we need as people, not like as athletes. And I feel like we're tired of like not being heard. So I feel like that's why we made the photo campaign.
Mm-hmm. I think it goes back like really heavily to the struggle we were just talking about before, finding that balance between, you know, your sport and who you are as a human being. And I think people from the outside also have that either struggle or misconception of us as athletes, where it's so easy to see how well you perform and like the things that you're able to do for a school and institution, all that, and just forget, like you're saying, Jay, who you are as a person and like what you can provide to the community and everything along that line. So that's why I just thought that, and I still believe WACA was the perfect, you know, outlet for us to convey that message just as student athletes, because athletes get things done, in my personal opinion. You know, if something needs to get done, an athlete is gonna get it done. That's just our job. That's just, I feel like, how we're wired, in a sense that, you know, action is the best way. In your sport, you're not going to sit back and like watch someone just do better than you. You're going to work harder, smarter, whatever you need to get yourself to the level you need to be at. So I think I took that same mindset, and I feel like most of the girls in the organization have that same mindset, and that we just need to get what we need to get done. And we didn't like the way that the rest of the world was treating us, and decided to do something about it.
For sure. And Aiko, yes, I know you were doing your Athletes for Black Lives Matter. I saw you, sis. So yeah, could you tell us about that and like what you were doing and what your responsibility you felt like was and why you took that, I guess, stance as well?
Yeah, I mean, everything that I did this summer was because, so I don't know, Leonie, I don't know if you share this like sentiment, but in Jamaica, I never had to realize my identity as a Black woman. Like, I knew I was Black, all my friends were Black, my whole family was Black. Like, I was not the minority. So it wasn't until when I was home and all these things were going on, especially like with Breonna Taylor here in Louisville, and I was like watching it on the news and hearing it and seeing it on Twitter, and it rocked me to my core, to the point where like I was like I have to watch the news every night, but I'm watching the news and like crying. I'm like, I'm not American, but like these are still my people. Like that's my city. Like Louisville is a second home to me. So it wasn't until that I truly was like, I'm not just the Jamaican volleyball player, but I'm Black. Like, and I never had to think about that before coming to the US. I never had to feel Black. Like before that, like if I came here like on vacation and someone asked me like, oh, like what are you? I'd be like, oh, I'm Jamaican. Like I'd never say I'm a Black woman. So it was a big like self-realization for me. And then with that realization, I wanted to do something with the platform I had as a student athlete and with my YouTube channel that I don't really use. So I decided I was going to create like this video called Voices, where I literally just ask people to share their experiences as not Black student athletes only, but as Black men and women in the US, because a lot of people, it was a time for people to listen, and especially for people that don't know anything about Black experiences, to just be quiet and just learn. And I think one of the best ways to learn about a people, a person, like a culture, is to just listen to what they go through and just kind of put yourself in their shoes as much as is possible. So I did that video Voices, which helped me learn more about being Black in America, which is not something that I've had to do for more than like 11 months a year for 3 years. And then with that, like there were different groups on Instagram, like, hey, we're trying to get this message out. Like, would you share our content? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, so it was like college athlete unity and athletes for BLM and like just a bunch of things. And the more I shared, even though it wasn't just performative activism, it was just more like, I know the people in my circle need to see these things. So I'm going to keep posting them until they get annoyed and actually decide to read it. So that's kind of where I was. But a lot of it was just like realizing my place as a Black woman, but as a student athlete, it kind of gives me more of a platform than the people that are marching on the street, because most of our donors are old, white, straight, conservative men who don't know much or don't care much about the Black female or just the Black experience. So it's just kind of like approaching it from that perspective. And then I tried to get people to vote, even though I can't vote. So then that was fun too. It's like, I literally like on my sign put, I can't vote, but you can make a difference. Like, so I don't know. It was fun. And in the process, I learned a lot. But
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, Aiko. I definitely never had to, I guess, educate myself as I needed to on the Black experience here, and just, secondhand by friends know of it and television, to be honest, but not really, media. And that's portrayed in different ways depending on the route that they want to go. So I guess, what are your guys' goals as, student leaders and stuff like that regarding social injustice and beyond, given like the energy that you put into fighting this year? I guess, what would you like to see going forward? I feel like a lot of persons have spoke about the annoyance, as you mentioned, Aiko, about like performative activism. What are your guys' goals for that or against that?
Long term, definitely for me, just in general, actual change, substantial change for the younger people that I know that are going into these institutions. But as for right now, even just beyond performative action, because I definitely feel like that's a thing a lot of administrators had to be confronted with during this time, because people stopped basically biting their tongues surrounding that, and kind of just helps people understand that sometimes saying nothing and just listening and actively listening is better than saying something that you feel like you either have to say or don't mean. And I also think representation matters. So the biggest thing, honestly, that I would want to see for right now is people actually taking the steps to make sure that Black people and other people of color are represented in these spaces, especially for, I think all of us on this screen, we go to predominantly white institutions where, we are the minority, and people who look like us are not always properly represented, whether it be on the court, the field, or on the track, but also in those coaching and administrative positions, where it's equally as important for us to be, and even just on campus and like in those positions of power where they can continue to make the changes that we need to see and continue to inspire people that come after them to take on those roles and fulfill those positions. Because until obviously we have people that look like us and have our interests in mind, no one's going to really understand what the Black experience on these very long, old-standing, predominantly white institutions is like for people who don't look like them. It's kind of hard for someone to sympathize when they truly don't understand. So I think the biggest thing that I want to see in the near future is definitely representation.
I agree. And so with our like Black Student Athlete organization, it's called SCORE. It's a very long acronym. But myself and my co-president and like our exec board, we talked about how we wanted more than anything to be downtown marching with the people that were trying to get justice for Breonna Taylor's murderers, but we couldn't because we had practice every day, or because we couldn't afford to catch COVID, or like we weren't afforded the time to go downtown and like protest and like demonstrate. So we figured that the most change that we could, or the most that we could do, was cause change within our department. So we talked to administration about getting representation, and like one of the main things we tried to do was get them to realize the importance of having a Black counselor or sports psychologist, because all of our mental health staff is white. And there's certain things that we just don't feel comfortable talking to them about, because not that they're not good at their jobs, but they just won't understand. And so it's harder for them to provide support for us. And thankfully, like administration is like, we get you guys, and like we're actually looking. And it was comforting to know that they were thinking about that before we brought it to them. But like we, as an organization and a student athlete like government type, we've like formed a relationship with them where they want to hear from us more about like things that have happened in the past and how they can support us. And I think that's, if the head is working for us, then it will like start to like come down, and we'll get like athletes who don't support BLM, or athletes who probably don't see us for who we are, to follow suit. If like our AD and our what is it called, associate AD, and the rest of them are like working for us. So that relationship was really what we tried to like build, and it's been working for us so far. So like we're excited, and they've been like putting on programming for the coaches to educate them, and like it's just been really cool to see all of that going on. Still a lot of stuff to do, but like they care about what we have to say. So that's really what we've tried to do.
I think like just like what you said at the end, like just knowing that they care about what you have to say is like honestly the biggest thing. Because for me, it's like you can say all these things and ask them for so many things, but if you feel like they don't care, they're not going to do it. It's like, what do you, like you can only say it so many times to get someone to care. So I feel like that's my biggest thing, is like actually feeling like they care. And then I feel like also starting within small and getting bigger is like the way it's gonna work, because not a lot of people are gonna want to come here if we don't do the things that we need to do. So then we won't have representation. So like it needs to start small and then get big. So I think just being a human being, at the end of the day, it's honestly just being about being a human being. Like it's not hard. So just wanting to care and then caring is my biggest thing.
I feel like if we all gave each other the same respect that we would want to grant ourselves, then this world would be a better place.
Exactly.
Simple as that.
Before the season, we got tested once a week. Leading up to the season, we got tested, like we did like 3 PCR tests within a month, and then we had to like gradually like integrate with each other.
I'm not going back in the spring personally, because I will get so much worse. I don't know if I'm ready for anything, and I don't think we ever are. I really think we're just gonna be like literally like trying not to panic. Like pandemic panic, I literally started crying because that was so funny.
I took a little time. I pray we gon' be alright. Okay, alright. Okay, alright. Okay, alright. Okay.
One can do, because it incorporates like being present and all these things that like I am so terrible at. And like even though I say like that's what you should do, I'm like really bad at it. So I'm trying to be okay with like the uncertainties that life will bring you, because I'm the type of person, like I'm playing it out, like it will come out the way I plan it. Like it will not. So like when people are like, oh, sometimes things in life don't come out what you think, like I'm like, no, I hate that. Like I need to be okay with that. So for this year, I'm gonna do what Monique is saying, and I'm going to like have an overall goal. I do like to plan like 3 years out, like where I see myself, just so like I have like tangible goals. So like being in medical school, but like I also think like pandemic planning is gonna be what I'm gonna be doing. So I'll do it like 2 days at a time, but like it won't be so rigorous, because we're gonna be like, I don't think people really understand. Like we're gonna be literally be like thrown one day, just freedom to do so many things. And if like I'm sitting here having a panic attack about like tomorrow because I don't know what I'm doing, like that's not gonna be okay. So I'm going to be okay with uncertainties.